My name is Helen Carter. I'm 64, a retired history teacher, and I thought I knew how to read people until the day Leo Adams leaned across his workbench and whispered, "Cancel your cards and run." The shop on South Congress smelled like hot plastic and coffee left too long on a burner. Leo, once my gawky ninth grader, now a careful man with steady hands, held my daughter-in-law's phone as if it were evidence. "I'm not joking. Mrs. Carter," he said, eyes flicking to the door. "You need to see this." I told myself there had to be a misunderstanding. Amelia is polished, kind, always the first to bring a pie on holidays. But Leo tapped open a hidden folder called Plan B, and the screen filled with messages from a number saved as Lucas, my son. Words I never imagined in his mouth. Medications, timing, a doctor documenting memory issues, a payout that would set us free. The room tightened around me. I heard the tinny buzz of a soldering iron like a distant alarm. "No," I said, though the texts didn't care what I believed. My throat burned, part fury, part shame that I had missed whatever had curdled in my boy's heart. Leo's voice softened. "Take pictures. I'll restore everything so she won't know. But you can't go home unprepared." My fingers shook as I lifted my own phone. Each click felt like choosing between the family I raised and the truth I couldn't unsee. When I looked up, the street outside was ordinary, sun on asphalt, a bus sighing at the curb, while my life in here had already split into a before and an after. I drove home with the phone tucked inside my purse like something that might explode if it felt heat. The late afternoon sun glazed every windshield along the street, and each reflection stung my eyes harder than the last. I counted the stoplights the way I used to count students during fire drills. 1, 2, 3. Pretending order could still exist. Our house sat at the end of the block. White siding, porch swing, the same place where we'd marked Lucas's height on the doorframe. It looked painfully ordinary. When I stepped inside, the air carried the faint scent of lemon oil and yesterday's coffee. Martin was at the kitchen table with the paper spread open, his glasses low on his nose. He looked up once and, in that glance, must have seen everything written across my face. I didn't speak right away. I poured water into the kettle because silence between us worked better with motion. The burner clicked to life. "Something's wrong," he said quietly, setting the paper aside. I nodded, feeling the muscles in my jaw ache from holding the words back. "It's Amelia's phone," I finally said. "Leo found messages between her and Lucas. It isn't good." His brow furrowed, the kind of crease that once meant he was mapping a mechanical fault at work. "Not good how? Not good in a way I wish were impossible," I whispered. "They talked about medication, about me, about money." He leaned forward, waiting for a punchline that never came. When I handed him my phone, the light from the screen cut across his face. He scrolled, read, stopped, went back. His breathing slowed. The kettle began to whistle, high and thin. I turned off the flame, but the sound seemed to hang between us. He set the phone down carefully, as if afraid of smudging evidence. "We're sure this isn't some terrible joke?" "I wish it were," I said. "Leo showed me everything. He put the phone back exactly as it was." Martin rubbed his temples, then reached for my hand. "All right," he said, the engineer in him taking command. "We need to see how far this goes." We moved to the office where the old desktop still hummed like an appliance from another decade. He logged into the bank. The numbers stared back, obedient and round, until he opened the statement view. Small withdrawals, regular, precise. 200 here, 300 there. Transfers to an account labeled R, B, Consulting, a name neither of us recognized. My stomach tightened. "They're bleeding us a drop at a time," I said. He didn't answer, only clicked through months, tracing the pattern like a man reading the slow heartbeat of betrayal. Then he changed every password, writing each one neatly on paper because we still trust what we can touch. I called the credit card company and asked to remove the authorized user. The woman on the line told me cheerfully that the update was complete and asked if I wanted to hear about new reward options. I hung up before anger could make me rude. "What about insurance?" I asked. He opened our digital files. Searching. There it was, a policy I had never seen. My name forged in a signature close enough to fool anyone who didn't know the loop in my H. The beneficiary line read, Lucas Carter. My throat went dry. Martin looked at me with a mixture of fury and disbelief. "He filed this through her company. I'd bet," he said. "She sells policies. She'd know exactly how." The words slid around inside my skull like loose marbles. "We go to the police," I said. "Not yet," he answered. "If we do, they'll run. We gather proof first." He was right. My anger wanted to roar, but reason whispered louder. Evidence first, safety second, confrontation last. We locked the office door and moved through the house, checking what needed protecting. The safe in the closet, the folder of old deeds, the spare keys under the flower pot. Everything looked so harmless. I brewed tea because ritual steadies panic. When I handed Martin his cup, our fingers brushed, and the small human warmth of it almost broke me. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. The ticking of the kitchen clock filled the space where hope used to live. Finally, he said, "How does a son get there?" I had no answer. Instead, I told him about the folder's name, Plan B, and the gall of it made his mouth twitch in disgust. We sat facing each other, the same distance we had kept through every decision of our lives. From mortgages to hospital rooms, we would face this one too. When the dishes were done, I stood at the sink and caught my reflection in the dark window. Behind me, Martin moved quietly, collecting documents, scanning receipts. In the glass, I saw not the teacher who once lectured on moral turning points in history, but a mother caught in one. The face looking back was lined and steady, the kind that had outlasted chemo and funerals and one miscarriage years ago. It would outlast this, too. A memory surfaced. Lucas at 7, clutching my leg during a thunderstorm, whispering that he'd never let anything hurt me. I'd believed him the way mothers believe things that make survival easier. Now I wondered if promises could sour like milk left too long in the sun. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Amelia. "Is the phone fixed? Can I swing by tonight?" I typed, "Yes. We'll be here," and paused before pressing send. My thumb hovered, the tiny rectangle of light reflecting off my wedding ring. I hit send. Martin watched me do it and nodded once, a signal that we were moving together now, step by deliberate step. He fetched the small spiral notebook he keeps for home repairs and wrote on the first page, "Evidence. Keep copies. No confrontation. Contact Dr. Patel tomorrow." He tore the page out and tucked it behind the sugar canister, same place we hide spare cash for road trips. We've always trusted practical hiding spots. Before bed, we double-checked the locks. The night hummed with cicadas, a chorus too loud for such quiet streets. I lay awake counting the seconds between their cries, listening for the sound of our son's car, though I knew he wouldn't come. Martin's breathing steadied beside me. I stared at the ceiling and planned the next morning. Call Dr. Patel. Call the bank manager. Keep my voice even. If faith was gone, structure would have to replace it. When sleep finally reached me, it wasn't gentle. I dreamed of standing in front of a classroom again, chalk in hand, writing one question on the board. What does loyalty cost? The students didn't answer. Only the chalk broke, sharp and white against my fingers. and I woke to the sound of my own heartbeat, reminding me that dawn was coming and we had work to do. Dr. Patel's waiting room smelled faintly of antiseptic and artificial lavender. I sat between two women scrolling their phones, pretending to read an article about heart health. My own heart felt like a clenched fist. When the nurse called my name, I followed her into the same small office where I'd once been told my cancer was in remission. Back then, Patel had patted my shoulder and said, "You're tougher than you look." Now I wasn't sure whether that was still true. He greeted me warmly, the kind of politeness that comes before bad news. "Helen, how have you been?" I placed my purse on my lap and met his eyes. "I've been better. I need to ask you about something that's been written in my file." His smile faltered. "Of course. You've marked signs of cognitive decline, memory lapses, confusion. I've never had those symptoms." He adjusted his glasses, scanning the screen. "These notes were entered after a conversation with your son, Lucas." He was concerned. "I never gave permission for a diagnosis or for anyone to share personal details." My voice wavered, but I didn't look away. "I need you to print every record related to those entries with your signature." Patel hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You're right. This should have required your consent. I'll correct the file today." He printed the pages and slid them across the desk. His expression softened. "I'm sorry, Helen. Sometimes family tries to help and ends up hurting." I folded the papers, thanked him, and walked out before my throat betrayed me. Outside, the Texas heat pressed against my chest like a warning. I drove straight to the bank. The branch manager, Mr. Holden, was a courteous man with kind eyes and a desk full of family photos. I explained I needed to revoke a power of attorney and block any joint transactions. He didn't ask why, he just nodded, printed forms, and watched me sign. When I handed him my ID, my hand trembled so much that he pretended not to notice. "We'll flag any activity over 1,000, he said gently, "and no one accesses your account without your physical presence." "Thank you," I whispered, and meant it. By noon, I had a folder thick with paperwork and the beginnings of a plan. Martin was waiting in the car outside, his tie crooked, his eyes rimmed red from lack of sleep. We drove to a modest office building downtown to meet a lawyer named Grace Levine. She was in her early 50s, sharp as a needle, but with the patience of someone who had seen too many families fall apart. She listened without interrupting, her pen tapping once against the legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back. "You did the right thing documenting everything. We'll coordinate with the police, but quietly. Do not confront them. I'll arrange protective monitoring." "Protective?" Martin asked. "Hidden cameras, call tracing, maybe even a wellness check under your name." Grace explained. "You're potential victims of fraud and attempted harm, but we need solid evidence before arrest." The word harm landed like a nail. I felt it sink in slowly. She handed me her card. "Don't meet them alone. If Amelia or Lucas suggests a visit, record it." 2 days later, our house became a quiet theater of preparation. Chief Ramirez, a tall man with tired eyes, arrived with 2 officers in plain clothes. They installed tiny cameras, one above the kitchen doorway, another near the dining room chandelier. I signed a consent form with shaking hands. "We'll monitor from a van down the block," Ramirez said. "If anything happens, use the word South Congress in conversation. That'll be our signal." That evening, Leo came by after closing his shop. He handed me a small USB drive sealed in an evidence envelope. "Everything from her phone," he said. "Texts, call logs, timestamps." I hugged him before I realized what I was doing. "You might have saved our lives," I murmured. He smiled sadly. You saved mine when you taught me to read, Miss Carter, call it even. Saturday passed in a kind of suspended normalcy. I made pancakes, watered plants, folded laundry. Martin replaced the light bulb in the hall as if small maintenance could patch the seams of our reality. We spoke little, but the silence between us felt like strategy, not fear. On Sunday morning, I texted Amelia. Dinner at 6? Martin's doctor says he's doing well. We'd love to celebrate. She replied within a minute. Perfect. Lucas will bring dessert. By 5. The table was set. White plates, silver candles, the nice napkins we usually save for holidays, a roasted chicken with rosemary and garlic, the smell filling every corner of the house like a memory of better years. Martin opened a bottle of Cabernet, but left it on the counter, unopened, until they arrived. The officers were already in the surveillance van down the street. Everything felt rehearsed, like waiting for a cue. When Amelia and Lucas walked in, they were the picture of comfort and ease. She handed me a pie box and hugged me lightly, her perfume sweet and clinical. Lucas kissed my cheek. The brush of his skin sent a chill through me. "You look great, Mom," he said, too casual, as if the words were part of a script. I smiled and told him the phone worked perfectly. "Leo's still the best in town," I added, watching for any flicker in his expression. There was none. We sat. The salad went first, then the chicken. Conversation floated between weather and work. Martin poured wine into each glass. Lucas reached for the bottle next. "Let me top you off, Mom." "No, thank you," I said. He insisted, pouring a small measure anyway. His hand brushed the rim of my glass. I noticed the faint smell of almonds, imagined or not. My stomach turned cold. I excused myself to fetch salt, giving him space to do whatever he planned. In the reflection of the microwave door, I saw him reach for my glass again. The camera above the archway blinked once, a tiny green eye. I counted my breaths. 3 seconds later, Martin called from the table. "Honey, could you bring more napkins?" When I returned, I swapped glasses casually, setting mine before him and his before me. Amelia laughed at some harmless story, completely unaware of the silent rearrangement. My fingers brushed the tablecloth. "You know," I said, "South Congress has changed so much these days. Leo's shop used to be the only thing left from the old neighborhood." Martin froze mid-bite. That was the signal. Outside, a car door slammed, then another. Before anyone could react, the front door opened hard, and Ramirez entered with 2 officers. The look on Lucas's face, half confusion, half horror, was the kind of thing a mother never forgets. Amelia dropped her fork. "What is this?" she demanded. Ramirez held up his badge. "Austin PD, please stay seated." He turned to Lucas. "Sir, we have probable cause to believe you've attempted to harm your parents. Step away from the table." Martin's hand found mine under the table, gripping so tight it hurt. Lucas stammered. "This is insane." But the officers already had gloves on, collecting the glasses. The red wine gleamed under the dining light, thick and quiet. As they led him out, I felt the strange absence of sound, no apology, no denial that could reach me. Amelia started crying, a dry, broken sound. "I didn't mean for this," she whispered, but I didn't answer. Somewhere in the distance, a siren started, echoing off the houses like a requiem. When the door finally closed, I stood in the kitchen staring at the stain of spilled wine creeping across the tablecloth. It looked almost beautiful in the lamplight, dark and vivid, like a map of all the places love can go wrong. The house felt hollow once the police cars were gone. The table stood stripped of plates, a dark stain marking where the wine had spilled, a bruise on wood. Martin swept up the broken cork and folded the tablecloth like evidence. We moved around each other quietly, 2 ghosts waiting for morning. By dawn, The kitchen smelled of coffee and disinfectant. I sat at the counter, fingers wrapped around a mug that had gone cold before I remembered to drink it. Martin stared out the window, where the jacaranda tree had started to shed its petals again. The world looked unchanged, which somehow made everything worse. Detective Ramirez came back before noon. His voice was gentle but certain. "The lab found digitalis in your son's glass," he said. "Enough to stop a heart in minutes." I nodded, staring at the photo frame beside the sink, Lucas at 12, holding a science fair trophy, grinning like he'd just invented the sun. Ramirez left us with a promise to call when charges were filed. His footsteps faded, leaving a silence that throbbed like pain behind a bruise. The days blurred into paperwork, interviews, and court dates. Grace Levine handled everything with surgical calm. "Stay quiet," she advised. "Let the evidence speak." It did. The phone records, the altered insurance forms, the poison. Amelia's plea deal came first, 8 years for cooperation. Lucas went to trial alone. When the verdict came, 25 years, I didn't cry. I sat in the courtroom clutching Martin's hand while the bailiff led our son away. Lucas turned once, searching for a mother who might forgive him. I met his eyes but couldn't lift my mouth to speak. Forgiveness wasn't ready yet. It was still learning to breathe. Afterward, we sold the house. Too many echoes, the ticking clock, the hallway where his shoes used to sit. We moved to a modest condo in Dallas, 2 bedrooms, 1 balcony, enough light to grow rosemary. We told people we wanted to downsize. No one asked from what. Months passed before the first letter arrived. The envelope was plain, the handwriting unmistakable. "Mom, I thought I was protecting you, getting ahead before life took you first. I was wrong. You don't owe me forgiveness, but I hope you sleep. Love, Lucas." I read it twice, then slid it into a drawer. Martin looked at me but didn't ask to read it. Some grief is private even inside a marriage. Slowly, we built a new rhythm. I started volunteering at the public library, helping adults learn to read. One student reminded me of Leo, nervous hands, hopeful eyes. "You have patience," he said once. I smiled because it wasn't patience. It was practice in holding broken things gently. Martin gardened on the balcony. Tomatoes, basil, a stubborn lemon tree. The soil stains on his fingers gave him purpose again. Some evenings we shared a glass of wine, just one, and toasted to surviving. The taste was sharp but honest. I still dreamed about the dinner sometimes. The clink of glass, the heavy quiet before the sirens. In those dreams, Lucas was still a boy, reaching for my hand in a storm. I would wake with his name on my lips and find the city outside still dark, the hum of traffic steady as a heartbeat. On those nights, I lit a candle and whispered the prayer I'd memorized during chemo years ago. Let what is broken be useful. One morning, nearly 2 years later, I walked past a playground near the library. A boy was showing his mother a drawing, proud and messy. She laughed, and something inside me eased. I thought of my own son, of the kindness buried under everything else. For the first time, I whispered, "I forgive you," and meant it. The forgiveness didn't erase the past. It simply stopped it from owning the future. I realized survival wasn't about what you escape. It's about what you choose to carry forward. Now, when neighbors ask how we're doing, I tell them, we're fine. Sometimes that means we're breathing, and that's enough. The evenings are gentle. We cook simple meals, water the plants, watch the light fade over the city. The air smells like rosemary and rain on hot pavement. Life, even scarred, insists on continuing. On the shelf above the sink sits the old coffee mug I never replaced. Inside it, folded small, is Lucas's letter. I keep it not as proof of guilt, but as proof of love's endurance, the part that survived everything else. I don't know if I'll ever see my son again. Maybe someday he'll walk free and find us older, smaller, still here. If that happens, I'll pour coffee for two, set it on the table, and let silence speak first. Until then, I live quietly, grateful for mornings, for forgiveness that grows slow as rosemary, for the ordinary grace of breathing in and out. I didn't choose what happened, but I chose to stay. And sometimes that choice, simple, steady, human, is the bravest thing we ever do.